Very touchy video. I remember growing up, and I remember seeing this everywhere. Of course, in Poland, lest we forget, in our own language. And even when I was a kid, I understood that we have already forgotten. Because you see, if it's not your skin, then who cares? What we are observing right now is lots of people are doing bad things to other people because it's not their skin. They actually benefit from doing this to us. Politicians got their bonuses. They got their wonderful chairs to keep, troughs, as I call them, like pigs. They keep eating very well. Then you've got the bureaucrats. They get their bonuses. They've never missed a check. Actually, during this greatest attack on our democracy, they received more, not less. And then there's the rest of us. Canadians looking at this and thinking to ourselves, what is going on? What is happening? History, I would say to you. That's what's happening. A repetition of history. Every 60, 70, 80, 100 years is the same old, same old. Some people think they are the pharaohs, and they think that you are the slaves. And they want to take advantage of other humans, other people. The Bible says nothing is new under the sun. I think that's the saddest part of what we have been witnessing and what we are witnessing in front of our very eyes to this day, because it's not over. It's not over. I have been listening to some of the testimonies coming from Ottawa, from the inquiry, and what a sham. What a joke. The lawyers for the tyrannical, evil, wicked government are trying to portray those people as violent, disrespectful. There was a suggestion that those people were suffocating in front of people's, front yards and stuff like this. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I was asked to go there. I was asked to testify, and I was not subpoenaed because I was not in Ottawa during that time. I was, I guess the main villain in Coutts. So I didn't go. I felt that God wanted me to stay here. But I was asked to testify, and my lawyer said, no, you don't have to say a word to those people. If they don't subpoena you, then there's no need for you to go. But sometimes I'm thinking, I wish I was there. Because I'm telling you, what I would be telling them would be very interesting and entertaining at best. Because the thing is, it's quite boring listening to the same garbage over and over again. And the people are terrified. They're scared. And I'm thinking, we're dealing with tyrants. What government did is tyrannical, not what those people did coming. And if they make the Ottawa's residents uncomfortable for a few weeks, so be it. So be it. We're not talking about picnic. We're not talking about ice cream deal. We're talking about our rights being stripped out of Canadians and our children and their children. We're not talking about just any protest for a paycheck or I would like to have more of this or that. We're talking about our lives. People are dying because of what this tyrannical government is doing to this day. Right. And as I'm listening, I'm thinking, oh my God, if I was there, I'll probably not come out of there alive. Or I would be immediately locked again. Because I would tell them what I'm going to tell you. The government did this. The government is at fault. The government is tyrant, dictator. The government broke the law. The people wanted what's rightfully theirs, their rights. And yeah, it made some people uncomfortable. That's what protests do. The whole idea of protesting is to make someone uncomfortable, because that's how you put pressure. Pressure on the government, pressure on the community. That's what you do it. If you want the government's attention. You walk on the streets. You walk out of your job. You strike. You say, no more. I'm not going to be subjected to this tyranny anymore. And that's what they did. Yeah, it made few people uncomfortable. And that reminds me of the story, what happened to me in the city of Calgary when the complaints were coming 2005, 6, 7, and 8. You see, Brenda, you remember that time. Apparently, there were hundreds, thousands of complaints about us feeding the homeless. So we were looking for the complaints. And the police were showing up, and the bylaws were doing their investigation, and behold, they couldn't find the complaints. Well, later on we did. They were coming from City Hall. Drew Farrell's office, that witch, and Joe Ceci, that warlock, that became the Minister of Finance for the Communist Socialist NDP. They're wicked, evil people. Evil, as evil you can be. They have no problem to break the law. They have no problem to lie. And that's what I hear at the inquiry. Lies after lies after lies, manipulation, trying to portray peaceful people as some kind of a terrorist organization. Yeah, I'm sure there were few over there. When you got thousands of people, then there are some that think that you should go further. But nothing happened. You talk. Today I've heard that they were weapons. Oh, wait a second, no one saw the weapons, but I'm sure they were weapons there. Just like they were weapons in Quds. Well, when I was there were no weapons. There was not even a talk about any physical resistance. We were like sheep being led to the slaughter. Peacefully. And that's what I said a number of times. This is a peaceful revolution. Revolution nevertheless, but peaceful. Right. What I mean by that is we refuse to cooperate with you. You're tyrants. You don't represent us anymore. You see, this government is not my government anymore. They're tyrants. Right. They don't represent me. They're dictators. They represent China and North Korea. Yeah. They do not represent Canadians. If I was there, I would say, charge Trudeau with treason. Yeah. And maybe in a way, my lawyers knew that to muzzle a tongue of a lion, it will be an impossible task. And they said, don't go. Don't say I did it. It is what it is. Exciting times. Yeah. Exciting times. I'll tell you what is going to happen in the next few weeks. Get excited. The party is growing like crazy, like a wildfire. I can't tell you what is going to happen in the next few weeks because I don't want to spoil the surprise for our wonderful NDP communist fascists. But it's going to be huge. We will quadruple from one day to another. Just give you that hint. God is working. God is working. From one day to another, we will become the most powerful opposition party in the province of Alberta. And this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning. So I'm going to be traveling a lot, and I knew that is what is going to happen, and I'll have to yap. But remember last week I told you that my mom said to me that I guess that's my job in my life, just keep yapping. So I keep yapping. I mean, I'm doing what my mommy tells me to do, right? I'm a good son. I keep yapping, and things do happen. People are coming from left and right. I just had a powerful meeting yesterday, and there's going to be another powerful meeting in a few days with some powerful people. But no matter what, in the end of the day, I want you to know that Jesus still sits on the throne. No matter what, remember that he has the final say. No matter what, remember that when you stand on the side of truth, you already won. You already won. So I want to continue. Since I will be away for a few weeks, I'm going to be traveling all over North Alberta, a number of meetings, number of cities, Peace River, Grand Prairie, Leduc, other places. And then I'm going to Ontario to do Rebel Life with some fascinating, amazing speakers. And then we're coming back, and then we have a Rebel Life here in Calgary. So if you're interested to hear some of the speakers, they're amazing people. They're lovers of this country. They're very knowledgeable, and they just want the truth to come out. Especially now when the federal tyrannical, evil, communist, fascist government of Trudeau wants to do is silence the internet. And I'm thinking to myself, I've told you so. I've told you so many times. This is exactly what is going to happen because they're tyrants. Tyrants are afraid of the truth. They always have to muzzle the truth. That's just how it goes. And then, of course, when they're muzzling the truth, they want to disarm you. And how do they disarm us right now? I'm not talking about guns. I'm talking our ability to protest, our ability to come together, our ability to raise funds, our ability to just survive another day. They're actively destroying our means to prosper. Telling you and me, of course, that you will own nothing. How many of you, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I was called a weirdo before, so maybe I'm wrong. But how many of you would like to own nothing and be happy? Like, let me see your hands. Like, maybe a church's mouse? No? Even the mouse is refusing to raise its hand. No one likes the idea I'll own nothing and I will be happy. Now, if you own nothing and you're happy, you must be crazy. And that's exactly what they think we are. That's right. That we are some kind of crazy, stupid people that do not know what's going on. Well, we perfectly know what's going on. Yeah. And we say no to them. Yeah. We say no. So I want to continue part 2 of our study on the dreams. Stands and decisions that can get you imprisoned and the dreams that can seal your fate. That's what we're going to talk about today. Jelani Daniel said those words, most dreams are held captive by other people's opinions. In other words, people are looking at you and you have a big dream and they are the very ones that will try to steal that away from you. But it's too big, it's too crazy. You want too much. Who do you think you are? You don't deserve that. You're not educated enough, you're not equipped enough, you're not rich enough, whatever you want to add to it, the list goes on. The job is very clear and very precise. The locusts. And when I came here this morning, I thought that half of the church was eaten by crickets. And I'm thinking, what happened? I know it's cold, and I know that lots of us were wiped out for a few days, but then you showed up just late. So I'm going to one day give a sermon, hell awaits those that come late. Or something like that. I don't know. I think of something to scare you to death. Joseph receives dreams. And here's an interesting thing. He could bow before the wishes of the mockers. Don't you find that fascinating? There are always mockers around us. There are always those that are ready to steal what's rightfully yours. So he could bow before the wishes of the mockers and deniers, but he did not. The dream destroyers were doing everything in their power to mess with God's plan for Joseph's life. They did a pretty good job. Joseph was mocked by his own, rebuked by his own father, sold into slavery by his own brothers. His future did not look bright at all. Quite opposite. It is now looking gloomy, dull, pale, rough. There's nothing like feeling abundant and alone. And I know that many of us felt that from time to time, that the future is not looking good, that we've lost friends, we've lost families, we were isolated, segregated. And that dream that God has given us has been pushed aside. And some people even thought it will never come to fruition. It will never bring forth the fruit it was intended to bring. That's the job of the locust. That's the job of the mockers, the deniers, the thieves. The job is to divert you from the plans of God. During that time, or during times like this, you may ask yourself, where is God? How many of you have asked that question before? Lord, why is this happening to me? Where are you? Do you even care? Like I'm asking and I'm asking and I'm asking, and you're not replying to me. Are you deaf, Lord? I'm sure that Joseph had his moments of, why, Lord? I had many moments like this. Why, Lord? Why me? Why is this happening to me? Why not my neighbor? I gladly share it with him. I share it with you. Why not? Why me and not you? Yeah, you. Does he even care what is happening to us? Especially during this time when the sickness is all around, and the flu season and cold weather, the transition from the warmer weather to the colder weather, it's wiping out our organism, and things happen, and sometimes you ask yourself this question: God, you're God that heals. Where are you? Why you're not healing me today? You healed me yesterday, but not today. I want to ask you to come here for a second. Come. Yeah, you. When I point a finger, everyone is thinking it's not me. Yeah, you. Come. About your husband. Yeah, you. That's right. It was like, me? Yeah. Why not? Because you see, you have a powerful testimony. Come. Don't be shy. It's okay. I only bite on weekends. Oh, it's weekend. Sorry.
I bite back too.
She bites too. She's a lioness. That's good. So, what happened? You came to me and your husband was dying, literally was dying. And we prayed for your husband that was dying. And you came to me last week with the praise report. And then you came today and you said what?
Oh, okay. My husband is in long-term care. And at the beginning of October, I don't know how to describe the owners without becoming nasty.
Go ahead.
No. Anyhow, in their great wisdom, they slashed the staff. And the unit that my husband is on went from not having any COVID throughout the entire pandemic to all of a sudden having 10 people out of about 28. All of a sudden they had COVID, and it has spread since then. I've been doing some research on the COVID statistics, and the most vulnerable people are those who have dementia. They're the ones who die the most. I got the phone call that my husband got COVID. This was not good. I went and I saw him. He was not doing well. And it's kind of difficult to tell when a person who is by nature very quiet, reluctant, very shy, very reticent. Opposites attract, you know. He was just lifeless. He had COVID and he was dying. This is hard. So I don't want this. I don't want to have to face this. I came and I asked Pastor Art for prayer, and he prayed. And from the time that Pastor Art prayed, my husband started getting better. The high temperature, all the things that were going wrong with him stopped. He's recovered, and he's much better. So God works even in a situation where how can I possibly say this without getting into trouble here on earth?
It's impossible.
Okay, I'll just say it then. Unfortunately, the people whom I believe, in my opinion, have been behind this whole COVID epidemic, they have wanted to get rid of people. They want to kill people. They want to reduce us. They also want to wound and maim us. My niece, who got COVID, is still suffering from COVID. She got, not only did she get COVID, she also got blood clots in her lungs. She can't smell. She has difficulty with all kinds of problems because of this. It's not a nice disease. Not only that, they have wounded us. Here's an interesting tidbit I found, and I actually had it verified by my cousin, who is a nurse, and I think she has her PhD in nursing.
Oh my God, God help us.
Oh, yeah. Very neat lady, and her specialty is in the heart, in the care of heart patients. I found this out and I verified it with her. Do you know why they want to keep us 6 feet apart? The reason for that, as we're standing close, our hearts are getting in sync. When we meet with other people, we are social people. We are built to be with other people. We are built to be in society. When we go out, when we're with other people, our bodies literally start syncing with each other. But that stops at 6 feet. So here are people who have been isolated in lockdown. All of a sudden, we're allowed to go out. Okay, we have to wear masks that don't do anything, and we have to stay 6 feet apart. So going out after being isolated and going out and being with people and you're 6 feet apart, you don't get that sense of connection. Is it any wonder that the suicide rate has gone through the roof?
Of course.
So
But your husband is doing good.
my husband is doing great, and I love it.
That's
Next step is complete healing.
Okay, thank you so much.
I went off track, sorry.
Thank you. You did great. I thought my sermon is out the window, but it's okay. We survived that ordeal. Your husband is doing good. You educated us. It's all good. Another day in paradise. So, why God sometimes answers in this way and some other times He's not answering at all. So we think. And I'm sure Joseph, after such a huge betrayal, after such a difficulties, and being thrown into a hole and sold as a slave, and I'm sure he had his moments. Lord, where are you? Remember, no matter what, when you are with God, God is standing with you even if you do not see it or feel it. That's our God. Let's open our Bibles to Genesis 39 too. We'll plow, hopefully, this field of Joseph, the story of the dreams. Genesis 39 2. The Lord was with Joseph so that he prospered. Again, do you hear those words? The Lord was with Joseph. Well, how come he could be with Joseph if he was a slave, in a hole, if you will, in trouble? That doesn't make sense. The God that sets the captives free is with a slave in a foreign land. But God had a plan. You see, God had a dream. The Lord was with Joseph so that he prospered, and he lived in a house of the Egyptian master. When his master saw that the Lord was with him, when his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord gave him success in everything he did, he promoted him. Well, let's go to Matthew 5:16. And I remember I have been bombarded by this on a regular basis for years. That we shouldn't be feeding the homeless people in the open because, that's vanity and that's pride and that's receiving the reward already on the earth, and you should be doing all of that in secret and all those different things. And I'm thinking to myself, well, then Jesus probably didn't make it because he performed signs and wonders in public. He fed the poor in public. He fed probably 50, maybe more, maybe 20,000 people in public. He was not hiding it. He was not pretending as somebody else. Matthew 5:16, this is what it says. Let your light so shine before men. Before whom? Men. Before men, in the open, so they can see it. That they may see your good works. They may see your good works and glorify who? And glorify your Father which is in heaven. So going back to Genesis 39:4, Genesis 39:4, Joseph found favor in his eyes and became his attendant. Potiphar put him in charge, that's the master, Egyptian master, in charge of his household, and he entrusted to his care everything he owned. From the time he put him in charge of his household and all of that he owned. The Lord blessed the household of the Egyptian because of Joseph. The blessing of the Lord was on everything Potiphar had, both in the house and in the field. So Potiphar left everything he had in Joseph's care, with Joseph in charge. He did not concern himself with anything except the food he ate. What a fascinating story. Joseph could become, like so many of us, from time to time bitter, unforgiving, miserable, crawling into his hole in his cell, saying, poor me, why is this happening to me? But instead, he chose to do his best as unto the Lord. In other words, he was not really working for Potiphar, for the master, he was working for God. Let your actions be louder than your words, and your dreams bigger than your fears. And remember, after a great breakthrough, which we will get from time to time, the dream killers, as I call them, will show up to challenge your faith. always happens the same way. The job is to divert you from your destiny. So I Googled it up. What is divert? What that word even means? You got to remember, I am a Polish immigrant. When I was, growing up, we were roaring in Polish language. Now I'm learning to roar in the Canadian language, which, of course, as you know, I changed into Paul English because Canadians are so polite. Even the roar was like a pussycat. Meow, meow, meow. Sorry, but you would not scare anyone. Hyenas would just kill you with their laughter. So I mixed the Polish roar with the gentle Canadian roar. And you've got Paul English, Artur Pawlowski style. Divert, what that means? Cause someone or something to change course or turn from one direction to another. Let me read it again. To change course so you know what you are to do. God clearly has spoken to you what you are to do, what you are to stand for. And suddenly the dream killers, the locust is coming to divert you from and turn you away from one direction to another, from the right one to the wrong one. Do not let them. Do not let them. Always go back to the order you received before, that you knew it was God speaking to you. In the middle of the battlefield, there is a lot of commotion. There are lots of voices that you will be bombarded with. That's not the time to change. That's the time to just stand. Stand the pressure, stand in the middle of the battlefield, and then you will get your new directions. But if you will change under pressure, if you will change under the noise in the middle of the battlefield, 99.9% it will be a diversion. It will be to divert you from where God wanted you to go and to be. Joseph was, even though it maybe did not feel like it at that moment for him, on the straight and narrow path of success. And the enemy didn't like that. And you may say to yourself, like, are you crazy? The guy is sold like a slave. He is a slave in Egypt, out of all the places, hard place. He's working not for himself, but for somebody else, and he is on the path of success. Yes. Verse 6. Now Joseph was well built and handsome. And after a while, his master's wife took notice of Joseph and said, come to bed with me. But he refused. With me in charge, he told her, my master does not concern himself with anything in the house. Everything he owns, he has entrusted to my care. No one is greater in his house than I am. My master has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God? Wow. Powerful. How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God? And though she spoke to Joseph day after day, he refused to go to bed with her or even be with her. Pressure, pressure, pressure. Day after day, it says. Just like we experienced in the past 3 years. We were terrorized by our own government, by the very people that were supposed to protect us. Day after day, putting pressure, terrorizing, scaring, threatening. Verse 11, one day he went into the house to attend to his duties, and none of the household servants was inside. She caught him by his cloak and said, come to bed with me, but he left his cloak in her hand and ran out of the house. Can you imagine? Running naked. Because he would refuse to sin against God. When she saw that he had left his cloak in her hand and had run out of the house, she called her household servants. Look, she said to them, this Hebrew has been brought to us to make sport of us. He came in here to sleep with me, but I screamed. You know what that reminds me of? The inquiry that we are hearing right now. They are the villains, and they did that to us in the first place, but now they're trying to say that we somehow were the villains. That's exactly what she's doing here. She is the wicked one. She is the evil one, just like the government. But now she needs to justify the rejection. And she's for the vengeance. She's for the blood. When he heard me scream for help, he left his cloak beside me and ran out of the house. Again, Joseph is being tested. Fire, purification, preparation, training for something bigger, for something greater. How many of us like to be tested in the fire? Being tested in the fire is not a cool thing, because it's the fire. It has nothing to do with cool. We don't like being tested, but if you want to be purified for the greater things, you have to go through the fire. The more intense is the fire, the more purified the gold will be that will come out of it. So I don't know what God has in store for your life. But I'm telling you, if the fire is intense, that means something amazing, something big is about to happen. Do not quit in the middle of the fire. Don't. Endure it. Go all the way. Let's go to Job 23:10. Job 23:10. I don't know why Tony has spared me the harassment of the monitor in the front. That was on purpose? I don't see the timer. Normally he harasses me with the timer. Job 23:10. But he knows the way I take. When he has tried me, I shall come forth as gold. And if you know the story of Job, it was a difficult time. My foot has held fast to his path. I have kept his way and not turned aside. I have not departed from the command of his lips. I have treasured the words of his mouth more than my necessary food. In other words, what Job is saying to you and me is his law is more important than my life. His ways are more important than my life. Genesis 39:16. She kept his cloak beside her until his master came home. Then she told him this story. It's just like I was hearing the lawyers for the police, for the government. The Hebrew slave, the trackers that came to Ottawa, came to make sport of me. I mean, sorry, Trudeau Castro, you're not that handsome. And by the way, even if someone likes him for his appearance, he was hiding at that time. So you could not find him anyway. But as soon as I screamed for help, he left his cloak beside me and ran out of the house. When his master heard the story, his wife told him, saying, "This is how your slave treated me." He burned with anger. Joseph's master took him and put him in prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. Out of the frying pan into the fire again. Can you imagine a one man enduring such obstacles? I mean, at every corner, what did she do to start with? Well, God gave him dreams. He shared those dreams. He ends up in a hole. He ends up in a slavery, sold. Now he ends up in Egypt with a slave master He does work hard, he does his best, and now he is in prison. Slave, prisoner, accused of a rape. Can you imagine? I think in Riemann, my friend, he would have to be in a protective custody probably, because other inmates would eat him alive with the drugs that they get from the guards and the nurses. But while Joseph was there in prison, the Lord was with him. Again, those words are coming back. Fascinating. But while Joseph was there in prison, the Lord was with him. He showed him kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. So the warden, I'm sure that was not Vader. That guy hates God. So the warden put Joseph, by the way, that's the name of the Riemann director, okay? For your information, Vader. Oh, yeah, Dark Vader. Fader, right? It's called Fader. Fader, well, but, again, this is Paul English. It's Dark Vader. So the warden, not Dark Vader, put Joseph in charge of all those held in the prison, and he was made responsible for all that was done there. The warden paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did. Sometime later, so time is going, he's working his way up, he achieves success, he organized everything. Obviously, God has granted him enormous, amazing wisdom to put all of that together. So sometime later, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt offended their master, the king of Egypt. Pharaoh was angry with his two officials, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, and put them in custody in the house of captain of the guard, in the same prison where Joseph was confined. The captain of the guard assigned them to Joseph, and he attended them. After they had been in custody for some time, so more time is passing, each of the two men, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were being held in prison, had a dream the same night, and each dream had a meaning of its own. I think those dreams are very important because at this time, as much as I like Joseph, and he's a fascinating fellow with an amazing integrity, he still was not fully purified. I'll tell you why later on, hopefully. So he is still not purified. He's still in prison. And by the way, the story of Joseph until he was set free was 13 years. This was not 5 days. This was not 50 days. This was not a year or two. 13 years of being a slave in Egypt and then years in prison. When Joseph came to them the next morning, he saw that they were dejected. So he asked Pharaoh's officials who were in custody with him in his master's house, "Why do you look so sad today?" We both had dreams. We both had dreams, they answered, but there is no one to interpret them. Then Joseph said to them, Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me your dreams. So the chief cupbearer told Joseph his dream. He said to him, "In my dream I saw a vine in front of me, and on the vine were 3 branches. As soon as it budded, it blossomed, and its clusters ripened into grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes, squeezed them into Pharaoh's cup, and put the cup in his hand." "This is what it means," Joseph said to him. "The 3 branches are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your position, and you will put Pharaoh's cup in his hand, just as you used to do when you were his cupbearer. But when all goes well with you, remember me and show me kindness, mention me to Pharaoh and get me out of this prison. Remember, I promised that if I'll not forget, I'll tell you why he needed to be more purified. Well, here's why. He was not supposed to rely on men. Joseph was to be purified with such an intensity of the fire that the only place that he was supposed to look up was God. He was his rescuer. He was the one that was to set him free, not some man that has the ear of the Pharaoh. Very soon I'm going to have a series of meetings with some very powerful men. I want to tell you, I do not rely on those people to set me free. I do rely on my God to set me free. Why is that? Because I don't want to make the same mistake that Joseph made. Joseph wanted out of his situation so badly that he was pleading with a man. He was looking for the man to set him free instead of turning completely to God to set him free. Let's not make the same mistakes. This cost Joseph 2 additional years in prison. 2 years extra. That's a powerful mistake. But when all goes well with you, remember me. The Bible says, curses the man that puts trust in another man. Remember me and show me kindness. Mention me to Pharaoh and get me out of this prison. I was forcibly carried off from the land of the Hebrews, and even here I have done nothing to deserve being put in a dungeon. See, he's whining and complaining. I don't blame him. We all do. I was whining and complaining. Why me? Why me? But you see, that was a major mistake that he made. He's whining and complaining. He's trying to seek help with another human being instead of relying on God's plan for his life, whatever that plan was. When the chief baker saw that Joseph has given a favorable interpretation, he said to Joseph, I too had a dream. On my head there were 3 baskets of bread. In the top basket were all kinds of baked goods for Pharaoh, but the birds were eating them out of the basket on my head. This is what it means, Joseph said. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift off your head and impale your body on a pole, and the birds will eat away your flesh. That's a tough interpretation. Now the 3rd day was Pharaoh's birthday, and he gave a feast for all his officials. He lifted up the heads of the chief cupbearer and the chief baker in the presence of his officials. He restored the chief cupbearer to his position so that he once again put the cup into Pharaoh's hand, but he impaled the chief baker just as Joseph had said to them in his interpretation. The chief cupbearer, however, did not remember Joseph. He forgot him. I remember when we did the rallies and we started them with 5 people, 7 people. I remember the time when there was 20 of us and I thought like we're in the middle of a revival. This is like fantastic. We're not alone. There's actually a number of people here. And then they grew to 100 and 500 and 1,000. And then we're in thousands. And just before I got arrested, we had 15 to 20,000 people on the streets of Calgary. It was amazing. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. And we all were forwarding the same agenda, and we were singing the same song called Freedom. But then they were restored. Many of them were restored to their rightful place, and they opened the restaurants again, and you can go and watch a movie and yell. I don't know why, but you can yell at the hockey game and do all kinds of weird things. They have forgotten what the whole thing is all about. why we were marching in the first place, what is at stake. Chief cupbearer, however, did not remember Joseph. He forgot him. Romans 8:28. Romans 8:28. And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. So we know no matter what is happening to us, in the end of the day, if you stick with God, whatever you're facing, it will work itself for a blessing, not for a curse. Proverbs 3:5. Proverbs 3:5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. Who will make your paths straight? Well, you see, Joseph's path at this moment was very crooked, very difficult circumstances. But trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Up to this time, Joseph did his best and he was greatly blessed, but he still relied on men. He wanted men to get him out of the trouble. But after 2 years, he realized, and I'll prove it to you by the scripture, that he was ready to die. He was literally ready to die in a heartbeat, and he didn't even care. Fascinating. Do not lean on your own understanding. Many times we do not understand why things are happening to us. We do not understand why. But God knows, do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways, whatever you're doing, submit to him. Do not forget him. Do not forget why we are even here, why we are coming together, what they have done to us. Do not forget, because the villains will come back. If we will not fix this problem now, the villains will come back again. And they will try it again. That's history. And if you, in all your ways, submit to him, he will make your path straight. So now we got 2 final dreams. The dreams that set the captive free. We started with 2 dreams that brought him into slavery and into prison. We have 2 dreams that showed Joseph and everybody else, do not lean on your own understanding. Do not put trust in another human being, but put your whole heart, all your trust into God. He is the one that will deliver you. Not your pastor, not your friend. All those people, your wives, your husbands, your children, your friends, the church, all of those components are good and beneficial. But in the end of the day, put your trust in him and him alone. He is the one that will set you free. He's the only one that is capable of setting you free. That's the whole point. If God could use you, he would not have to die in your place. He had to die because there was no one else that could set you free. So out of all these messages, take this one thing. No matter what is happening in your life, he is the one that can fix your problem. Only he is able to. He can use people, of course. But do not put too much trust in men, because you will become like me, disillusional. I've seen so many people that came to me and called me a hero and loved me and hugged me, almost squeezed me to death. That's why I'm so fragile now. I got hugged by tens of thousands. I got squeezed by tens of thousands of people. But in the end of the day, it's you and God alone.
That's right.
It's just between you and him alone. Those thousands of people will not come between you and God. It will be you naked and God. Pharaoh's dreams, the dreams that will fulfill Joseph's destiny, I call it. Genesis 41. When 2 full years had passed, again, I told you, 2 years he had to spend in prison because he relied on men. He was not purified yet. He needed to learn that God is the only one that can set him free to fulfill those dreams God gave him those dreams, not the man, and only God can fulfill those dreams. So those dreams that he has given to you, the dreams that he has given to me, men cannot fulfill them. Only God can. He can use people, but only God can fulfill them. That's why I'm not stressed. I'm thinking to myself, and that's why I mean what I say. And I've shared that with you when people call me and, oh, what if people will not vote for you? Don't. Really, I don't really care. What I care about is God's will in my life, whatever that means. If He wants me to win, I will win. If He doesn't want me to win, I will not win. In the end of the day, it's up to you. And in the end of the day, this is your land. This is your country. What kind of a nation this is going to be, it's up to you. Who is going to be in power? It's going to determine the future of your children. In other words, it's on you. Genesis 41:1. 2 years, my God, in a dungeon. And Pharaoh has a dream. I'm telling you, could God give him a dream the same day? The 2 years before? Couldn't He give him a dreams a year before or 16 months before? But he waited 2 years. Can you believe it? Whose dreams were there? Those were God's dreams given to Pharaoh, right? He could give him the dreams before to set Joseph free earlier. But he kept him in a dungeon for 2 years. That's crazy. Why? Because there was something still in Joseph. My prayer is, God, whatever that something is in me, please do not allow me to waste 2 years in a dungeon. Purify me now. Intensify the fire so I can come out purer, holier. Do not allow us to waste years in a dungeon because we're not ready yet. I want to be ready. I want to be ready for whatever God has in store for us. Here are his dreams. He was standing by the Nile when out of the river there came up 7 cows, sleek and fat. They grazed among the reeds. After them 7 other cows, ugly and not came up out of the Nile and stood beside those on the riverbank. And the cows that were ugly and not ate up the 7 sleek, fat cows. Then Pharaoh woke up. He fell asleep again and had a second dream. 7 heads of grain, healthy and good, were growing on a single stalk. After them, 7 other heads of grain sprouted, thin and scorched by the east wind. The 10 heads of grain swallowed up the 7 healthy, full heads. Then Pharaoh woke up. It had been a dream. In the morning, his mind was troubled. So he sent for all the magicians and wise men of Egypt. Pharaoh told them his dreams, but no one could interpret them for him. Then the chief cupbearer, the guy with the dementia, or lack of vitamins maybe, the chief cupbearer said to Pharaoh, "Today I am reminded of my shortcomings. Pharaoh was once angry with his servants, and he imprisoned me and the chief baker in the house of the captain of the guard. Each of us had a dream the same night, and each dream had a meaning of its own. Now a young Hebrew was there with us, a servant of the captain of the guard. We told him our dreams, and he interpreted them for us, giving each man the interpretation of his dream. And things turned out exactly as he interpreted them to us. I was restored to my position, and the other man was impaled." So Pharaoh sent for Joseph, and he was quickly brought from the dungeon. When he had shaved and changed his clothes, he came before Pharaoh. That reminds me, we don't have Ray here. I think maybe he went to Medicine Hat. I remember when I was in prison and he was there with my family and David and some of you, and he was speaking to the guards. He was declaring something, and then he stopped and he said, "Artur Pawlowski for premier." I don't know if some of you were there, but that's what he said. And I don't know who told me that Nathaniel or my wife says, well, it came out of him. It was like crazy. And that was also the day when I was sitting in a cell by myself, of course, walking back and forth and saying to God, if they will not allow me to be a pastor, I'll become a pastor politician. And what was chasing me yesterday, I'll be chasing tomorrow. So I made up my mind. I said, fine, if that's what I have to do to survive, I'll do it. Lord, not my will, but thy will. If you're leading me into this, fine, let it be. And Ray was prophesying something, and I asked him afterwards. I said, what was in your mind? I mean, this is crazy. Even that statement when I was still in prison was a crazy statement. He says, I don't know. It just came out of me. It was like God was speaking. And then it ended. When I said what I said, I went back to whatever I was talking about. It was a prophecy. And then when I was released, he came to me and said, Art, God is telling you to dress up for the job. Dress for the job. Look at this. Joseph didn't know he's going to become the most powerful man in the world at that time. I mean, can you imagine? From a dungeon, from a slave to the most powerful man on earth right after the Pharaoh's throne. It's crazy. He didn't know that he was shaving for a job, for the job application, if you will. He was applying to become the most powerful man on earth. He didn't know. He shaved, changed his clothes from his prison coveralls, the blue probably, or the orange. I've tasted them both. Not very tasty. When he had shaved and changed his clothes, he came before the Pharaoh. He dressed for the job and didn't even know that he is actually effectively applying to become the most powerful man. Pharaoh said to Joseph, I had a dream, and no one can interpret it. But let me go back to what Ray was saying, because I think we've missed the significance of that statement. What do you want in life? What do you want God to give you or to do for you? You got to dress for the job you're applying. You got to dress for the position He wants for you. You got to do your part in order for God to do His part. You know, quite often Christians are waiting for God to do something for them, but God is waiting for them to do something that so He can do that something. We're waiting for God, but God is waiting for us. And He says, until you do what I want you to do, I cannot step in and elevate you or heal you or change you. Now think about that. We as Christians, we have made so many mistakes by waiting on God, while at the same time God was waiting on us. Take the first step. But Lord, I don't see the staircase. Doesn't matter. Just take the first step. That's all. That's the only thing He wants to do. He doesn't want us to do anything else except to have faith that can move the mountains. He will do the rest. Quite often, you will not have to even fight the battles. He will fight the battles for you. The battle is the Lord's, He says. But He wants you to take that first step. Joseph is making his first step. He shaves. He's not going to come before the Pharaoh whining and complaining like he did 2 years before. Oh, poor me, I'm innocent and this and that. You know, how many times we talk to the inmates, I'm innocent. Well, actually, I was innocent. But not according to those that put me in. According to them, I was the most dangerous man in Canada. I mean, you got to remember, I was accused of causing Canadian economy over $400 million worth of damages. You know, like I said before, I didn't know I'm so powerful. He's not making excuses. He's not trying to get him out of the trouble. No, he shaves, he changes the clothes, he washes himself, and he shows up before the Pharaoh ready to be used by God. Without his personal attachment, without whining, complaining, poor me, why is this happening to me? No, here I am, Lord, use me. I don't understand why you're doing this to me or allowing this to happen to me, but here I am. Use me. And that's why I believe that's what got him out of the dungeon. And God knew Joseph is ready. He's ready to die. I'll prove it to you that he was ready to die. Pharaoh said to Joseph, so you got to remember, he is accused of a rape. He is a slave, a Hebrew slave out of all. He's in a dungeon and he's being brought to the most powerful man on earth at that time. A man that was considered to be God, a man that others worshipped him as God. I had a dream. No one can interpret it. But I have heard it said of you that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it. The next words are absolutely fascinating. It's a slap in a Pharaoh's face. He literally slaps him in the face. I cannot do it. Pharaoh just said you can because I say you can, because that's what was told to me that you can. And then he turns to the Pharaoh, to the one that claims to be God, and says, no, I cannot. Just for that, he could lose his head. Joseph replied to Pharaoh, but God will give Pharaoh the answer he desires. You know what Joseph is in fact saying? Pharaoh, you're not God. You're not God. You think you're God. People think you're God. They worship you as God, but you're not God. But the real God that I serve is going to interpret your dreams. That's absolutely crazy. By saying those words, Joseph was ready to die. He was ready to be impaled. He was ready to lose his head. It didn't matter. What mattered at that moment was to stay with God and be true to his truth. I cannot do it, Joseph replied to Pharaoh. But God will give Pharaoh the answer he desires. Dangerous game Joseph is playing. Dangerous game. At this time, Joseph was completely forged in the fire and was ready to fulfill God's dream. So now let me ask you this question. Are you completely forged in the fire? Where did you spend enough time in the fire? I have that effect sometimes when I preach. Screaming and yelling. Especially the lefty. They yell and scream and complain. So, have you been completely forged in the fire, ready to be used by God? The Pharaoh said to Joseph, in my dream, and here is another fascinating part, the Pharaoh is not offended somehow. Pharaoh is just, okay, let's just move on. He really wanted to know. He really wanted to have the interpretation. So he completely ignores Joseph's statements, which again were shocking. In my dream, I was standing on the bank of the Nile, and he tells him all the dreams. He saw the sun. Is that something? Time is up? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. See, battery died. I got that effect on batteries too. Sometimes. So again, he's telling Joseph all the dreams that he had, and the 7 heads of grain, full and good, and they went swallowed by the 7 scorched and weak. The 10 heads of grain swallowed up the 7 good heads. That's verse 24. I told this to the magicians, but none of them could explain it to me. Then Joseph said to Pharaoh, the dreams of Pharaoh are one and the same. God has revealed to Pharaoh what he's about to do. The 7 good cows are the 7 years, and the 7 good heads of grain are 7 years. It is one and the same dream. The 7 lean, ugly cows that came up afterwards are 7 years, and so are the 7 worthless heads of grain scorched by the east wind. There are 7 years of famine. It is just as I said to Pharaoh. Listen to this again. God has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do. Pharaoh, you're not God. Pharaoh, you're just a man. But God is showing you what is about to happen. That's a slap in the face. And he does it again, the second time. It's fascinating. And you got to remember, all the officials are listening. Everyone is around standing there listening to what Joseph is saying, but Joseph doesn't care. He doesn't care what is going to happen to him anymore. He cares only about what God wants him to say and do. And he's not holding back. 7 years of great abundance are coming throughout the land of Egypt, but 7 years of famine will follow them. Then all the abundance in Egypt will be forgotten, and the famine will ravage the land. The abundance in the land will not be remembered because the famine that follows it will be so severe. The reason the dream was given to Pharaoh in 2 forms is that the matter has been firmly decided by God. And God will do it soon. Well, I thought that Pharaoh was God and he was the most powerful God on earth. And yet he gets slapped a number of times. Bum, bada, boom, 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 boom. God has decided your fate. God is going to do this. God sealed it. God, boom. And the Pharaoh is sitting over there and thinking to himself, well, he knows I'm not God. So my friends, I want you to know that we are heading for a great difficulties. I believe the famine is coming. I think we already are in the middle of the famine. I think the globalistic agenda is to weaken our economy, to destroy us, and to create a situation that we will not be able to defend ourselves and provide for ourselves. God is giving us a chance to be a blessing. I believe that He has raised us up and have chosen us to be the Josephs of today. I truly believe, and I said that so many times, that Alberta can become the Saudi Arabia of North America. I mean, as you know, I truly believe in the resources we have in the ground. I mean, God gave those resources to us. The oil, the energy, the forestry, everything. God has given us. He blessed us with this. Let's take it. Let's use it. Let's use what He has given to us. And we've got natural resources, not just oil and gas. We got all kinds of things in the ground. We can truly become the most blessed place in North America, if not on earth. And I think God is raising us up, just like Joseph was being raised up before, purified in the fire for such a time as this. God is giving us a chance to do the right thing. Take it. So now let Pharaoh took, and so he's giving him the advice what to do. And I like his humbleness. He says, let Pharaoh look for a discerning and wise man and put him in charge of the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh appoint commissioners over the land to take a fifth of the harvest of Egypt during the 7 years of abundance. They should collect all the food of these good years that are coming and store up the grain under the authority of Pharaoh to be kept in the cities of food. This food should be held in reserve for the country to be used during the 7 years of famine that will come upon Egypt so that the country may not be ruined by the famine. The plan seemed good to Pharaoh and to all his officials. So Pharaoh asked them, can we find anyone like this man one in whom is the Spirit of God. Boom. Right, just like that. Just like that. Joseph was a man that was not willing to compromise. Joseph was not a man that was hiding and playing a game of politics. Joseph was not bowing before the Pharaoh, pretending the Pharaoh was God. Joseph was willing to die. When you come to a place in your life that nothing matters but God's will, I believe that you can, and only then, you can be used mightily for the kingdom of God. Joseph becomes the savior of nations. But before he could be called the savior of nations, he had to be willing to die and speak the truth. In the end, no one can stop your destiny. What God wants to give, no one can take away. Let me read that again. What God wants to give, whatever He wants you to have, whatever the authority and the power or position He wants you to have, no one can take away. Pharaoh said, verse 39, since God has made all this known to you, there is no one so discerning and wise as you. You shall be in charge of my palace, and all my people are to submit to your orders. Only with respect to the throne will I be greater than you. He becomes the president, prime minister of the world. From one second to another, because a man was not willing to bow before idol called Pharaoh, but stood true to the word of God. So Pharaoh said to Joseph, hereby put you in charge of the whole land of Egypt. The Pharaoh took his signet ring from his finger and put it on Joseph's finger. He dressed him in robes of fine linen and put a gold chain around his neck. He had him ride in a chariot as his second in command, and people shouted before him, make way. Thus he put him in charge of the whole land of Egypt. Can you imagine? I think his ears were hurting, sitting in a dungeon, being falsely accused of a rape and being a slave, a Hebrew slave in a foreign land. And suddenly he is riding in a chariot, and the people, thousands, tens of thousands of people, wherever he shows up, they're singing praises. They're singing stuff. They are shouting, make way. Thus he put him in charge of the whole land of Egypt. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, I am Pharaoh, but without your word, no one will lift hand or foot in all Egypt. So Pharaoh gave Joseph the name Zaphanath-Paneah and gave him Asenath, daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, to be his wife, and Joseph went throughout the land of Egypt. Joseph was 30 years old when he entered the service of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. I remember I told you there was 13 years of an ordeal for Joseph. From the moment he was put into the hall by his brothers to the moment he was elevated into this powerful position was 13 years. Many Christians just want it to happen like this. I just want the blessing to come without the work. I just want to have a powerful position without paying the price. And look, there are people in government right now that have powerful positions and went into their head and they became tyrants. They never really worked in their lives. They never actually understand what it means not having enough to pay for the bills, so they don't care. They're entitled brats, spoiled brats. And they just want to take like locusts and eat everything on the spot. And Joseph went out from Pharaoh's presence and traveled throughout Egypt. During the 7 years of abundance, the land produced plentifully. Joseph collected all the food produced in those 7 years of abundance in Egypt and stored it in the cities. In each city, he put the food grown in the fields surrounding it, and Joseph stored up huge quantities of grain, like the sound of the sea. It was so much that he stopped keeping records because it was beyond measure. Here's the lesson in the end of the story. When God is telling you prepare, prepare. When God is telling you difficult times are coming, prepare. Don't be ignorant. Don't say, well, it was good before, it will be good always. And God is telling throughout thousands of prophets around the world, difficult times are coming, but the church will prosper. But the church has to be wise. And we have to do everything in our power to get ready. Peter McWilliams said those words, be willing to be uncomfortable. Be comfortable being uncomfortable. It may get tough, but it's a small price to pay for living a dream. Don't let anyone steal your dream. It's your dream, not theirs. Church, be blessed. Thank you.